What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Collider Interview Studio at Sundance 2025, brought to you by Rendezvous Capital. We are here supporting indie cinema and also LA Wildfire Relief Live, an organization that is supporting people who are impacted by the wildfires. If you are able to donate, please head on over to lawildfirerelief.live. Thank you in advance. Now, without further ado, I get to say congratulations and thank you to the team behind The Ballad of Wallis Island. I said it to you before we started rolling, but it's just like the movie I needed in my life right now, so thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So when we celebrate a film festival debut, there's a chance our audience might not know about your movie just yet. I was going to throw it to one of you. You were sitting next to me, though, so now you're getting the duties. Can you give us a brief synopsis of the film?
Yes, there's an eccentric millionaire who's sort of bumbling and lives on his own in a large house on an island somewhere, we don't know. And he decides to use his money to get his favourite band back together and gets them to come to his island and then causes havoc in their personal lives.
I have quite a few questions about taking this idea from short to feature. The first one being, do you all remember like the very first moment that you suspected it could be a good option to adapt to a feature? And then while doing that, did you have some sort of break story moment, like an idea that you came up with that made you think like, you know what, like, yeah, this is gonna work?
Well, the original short film was a two-hander. And so I think that the key thing for us was introducing other characters and realizing that the comedy early on in the film, which is all about these two strangers hanging out, kind of getting on each other's nerves, needed to go somewhere. It needed more characters to come in that could bring backstory, that could bring, you know, old relationships and sort of old tensions to the surface, which Tim's character Charles is kind of unwittingly kind of manipulating. So I think, you know, when we were kind of planning the feature, it felt quite natural to us that we'd have to open up the world of it, bring other people in, and bring in, you know, some history, bring in some kind of like regret and some you know, emotions that weren't there in the short.
You bring in the best possible people ever.
Right.
I'm going to get to your character Nell in a moment, but James, I'm curious from your perspective, when did you know that there was potential for your short to be turned into a feature? Did you kind of have that feeling all along, or was it a surprise when they told you?
No, I mean, we discussed it when we made the short, and it actually, you know, it did very well around the festivals and won at Edinburgh, and we had a very thankfully had a BAFTA nomination, a nod, and so there was conversations early on about developing it into a feature. But I think there was a little, we were very young at the time and young filmmakers, and we kind of got moved into a development process that was kind of bigger than the film is now. And so it took us a while to kind of, well, grow up a bit and grow into these kind of, for them, grow into the characters that they are now, 18 years on.
I'll build on that a little with the three of you in terms of taking it from short to feature. Given how much time has passed, how much you've grown, what would you say is the thing about this story that I guess struck you the most back in 2007? And what is it about the feature film version that makes the biggest impression on you personally?
Well, I think for me, the original short was just such a neat and charming kind of two-hander and very funny. But you know, I had 18. My children are as old as the film, so I've had a lot of experience from there. And I think for me, what touched me about how they'd moved the script on, not just because it had opened up and there was more conflict and more interesting dynamics with these three characters and the introduction of Nell, it was that a time in my life where I felt like, you know, you get sort of stuck, or you start questioning the choices you've made in the past and spend a lot of time looking backwards. And for me personally as well, through music, looking backwards and remembering times and things that had happened in my life that were evoking a lot of emotions. And so then when, you know, 18 years on, I guess the message in the film for me is you've got to look forward, you've got to move forward. And that's why it was very personal to me.
Beautifully said. How about for the two of you?
You know, I think the funny thing for me about watching it yesterday, and it's the first time I've ever seen it with an audience, so it was really thrilling, but I found it very moving because what happens in the film is it's about people who are remembering a time in their life, like 10, 15 years earlier, when they were very young and optimistic, and they, you know, had a very different outlook on things, which is of course the time when we made the short. So there's a kind of art imitating life element of it where I'm watching it, and it's kind of about characters in their 40s remembering what it's like to be in their 20s and the sort of first flush of love and creativity and all these things. And that's, of course, the time in my life when I made the short as well. So there's something about the film that sort of echoes the kind of story of the film in a really lovely way.
Beautiful element as well.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a good thing to just make this film every 18 years and just see what your relationship
I'm
is.
here for
yeah,
it.
I think I am. It is interesting to see. I haven't seen the short for a while, but it would be interesting because we'd be all young and still with the story that we're telling. But this is, there's a, well, I mean, Griff put it very well, really. We're at a different stage in our lives and you see it through a slightly different lens.
I will say, I just watched the short for the first time the other day, and I do feel like this particular story's journey from short to feature is like the kind of things that should be taught in classrooms. It could just be very inspiring for someone to see where something started and how you've all grown as filmmakers and actors. It's very impressive. Carey, I'm coming your way with like one of the biggest questions I could possibly throw your way, but I was reading another interview, James, you had done, and you mentioned that Carey saying yes to playing Nell really led all of you to getting this film a green light. And like, again, this is a really big question and idea, but you getting involved in films is really important and it helps get movies made that might not otherwise. So I guess what does it mean to you to have that power in your career now? And how do you hope to continue wielding it going forward?
Oh my God.
Big deal.
How shall I wield it?
Have you made other films then?
I've made a few. I honestly just was, it's so amazing to get jobs generally, isn't it? And I think this film was going to happen, regardless. Correct. Like, and so it's always nice to be additive to something, but yeah, I don't think I think I just wanted to be in it. Like I read it, I thought it was the most incredible script. It's unbelievably rare to read really, really good writing. Like you read a lot that's like, yeah, it's great, and you'll get it there, or you'll, maybe we'll like improvise that a bit, or but it doesn't come along very often. You get a script and you go start to finish, this is so good, and there's nothing I would change, and I just want to be able to say these words, and it makes your job so much easier as an actor. So the script was so brilliant, and the short was so great. I was like, oh, if I can be a part of this being a feature, that's amazing. And so yeah, but it is, yeah, it's wonderful to get to be like remotely useful or helpful.
I'll give you another big question. I'll give you a two-parter because you just say you read the script and you really loved it. It was no-brainer to be a part of this. When you first signed on, what single part of, making this movie and playing this character were you most excited about? And then ultimately, was there any part of making this movie that wound up being more creatively fulfilling than you ever could have imagined at the start?
Gosh, I was so excited just to get to be like a front row seat for this situation, for the two of them. And there is just hours and hours and hours, I imagine, of footage that isn't of just them just like riffing for after the scene, before the scene, in the middle of the scene. So I was so excited. I knew I was going to be the straight man in a situation where I could just watch these guys being hilarious. It was, when you have a set like the set that Griff made, that just feels so warm and everyone can do whatever, it's so free and lovely and there's so much love, and the crew, I think, felt like they really loved the story and kind of fell in love with all the characters. You do just become like incredibly free with the way that you express. I didn't feel like any of us had to sort of enormously push for anything, and that's very often not the case. Often you feel like, okay, how am I gonna sort of figure it out today? And every day on this just felt like easy, and that's a testament to a really good script and really good actors and a really good director.
I love highlighting good vibes on set, so I'll jump on that idea as well. And also to highlight maybe a couple scenes in the movie for each of you. What single day of making the Ballad of Wallis Island brought you the most joy as an artist?
I mean, I loved the scenes when Carey and I are performing the music, and the scene when we're playing to Tim at the dinner table. That was just a really magical day, and it was, just so lovely, and that's the kind of moment where you're like, I've been writing this music and we've been thinking about this film, and now we're here and we're doing it, and it felt really good, and so that was a real highlight for me. Yeah,
I think I love doing the scene with Carey, but I think the thing is you can get kind of what's the word? Take for granted what me and Tom have. So I think the scene in the shop with me and you, with Sian, probably. But I'm getting quite emotional.
Ken, you should be so proud of all this. It's a big deal.
No, but I knew that one because the easy one is to say Carey because it wasn't lovely to do that, but I knew I'd get a bit emotional saying about Tom. But yeah, that scene was with Sean where you encouraged me to ask her out. Yeah.
Beautiful moment.
You're going to get everyone going there. No, honestly, I think for me it was the. I mean, that scene, all of the scenes with all the characters have been amazing for me. I enjoyed every minute, but the dinner table scene where the kind of the secret comes out about the money, and we've got pretty much all the cast minus Sian, and these dynamics, and everyone has this kind of everyone gets a chance to kind of have these comedic moments within that, and the awkwardness, and everything plays really well. And it's such a simple scene, like a dinner table scene, but I really love what everyone did on that day and the characters and how they kind of formed their dynamics. I love that.
Last up.
Yeah, the sunset scene on the beach where we're all setting off our lanterns, and the process of setting off those lanterns was such a disaster. And we had props can I tell the story?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Props had they because we couldn't light them because of national trust. We were a national trust. You can't, and it's very bad for cows. Those lanterns are terrible. Generally, don't use them. But we did fake ones, and so they had them on fishing rods. And they had three guys from props down on fishing rods trying to sort of
make them look organic.
Yeah.
It was a disaster.
I think we were...
And the sun was going down,
We were quite
of course.
worried about that scene.
Yeah.
And then the sun was going down, but there also was no beautiful sunset. You put
No,
beautiful
no, it was
sunset
a
in
murky
afterwards. So we
day.
were like, look at the beautiful sunset, of which there was none. But it was very funny.
I love examples like that about what it really takes to make these things happen that look like beautiful and perfect in the finished film. I wanted to squeeze in one sillier question. I feel like you're getting asked this a lot, so I'm going to try to change it up a little. If each of you won the lottery and could have someone or something performed just for you, what would you choose? Like, I keep thinking about, like, one of my favorite Broadway musicals is Wicked. Like, to be able to be the only or even with the Super Bowl coming up, like, to have, like, an NFL game played just for me. Like, feels selfish, but it leans into the question nicely.
But not necessarily a singer. Could you
Not
be like
necessarily.
a...
You could pick
okay.
anything you want.
All right. I can't go first.
No, I'm not going first. Come on.
Well, I love the stadium. I actually really enjoy a collective thing. So having something just for me, I'd feel so self-conscious.
I thought about that with a movie
It's so difficult.
too. I'm like, I want to just sit and have a movie just for me, but then that takes away like half the fun of it.
Exactly. And the sports thing, I love being 80,000 people all sort of, willing something along. So that's tricky for one. Yeah, I don't know. I've got no answer.
I've got one. I was at a lunch a couple of years ago and Al Pacino gave the speech and he made this like 20-minute speech and it was just the greatest speech of all. I can't even remember what it was about, but it was so good. And I was like, I could sit and watch just Al Pacino just telling stories for several hours. I'm hiring Al.
Tell stories.
I like
Check
that
is
one.
avail.
Yeah.
I'd probably just go and watch some sport. But as you say, Griff, I feel like you want the 80,000 people with you. So I'd watch like an Ashes cricket match in
it
Australia.
doesn't really
from the
matter.
umpire's
Am I
position.
allowed to take part? Could I
No,
play snooker
no.
against Ronnie O'Sullivan or something? Is that allowed? I could
You can do whatever you want.
well, I'll do that. I'll
Lottery
hire
winner.
someone I can, to like play with or like box.
Okay.
But like, they tell them to take it easy. But
Fair enough. You make the rules. Again, this is your game. I do have to wrap with you. I have to do the inevitable, Carey, and ask you about an upcoming project. I'm sure you can guess what it might be. Beef Season 2, which everyone is very excited about. I know you have already mentioned that almost everything about Season 2 is different, but given how much I love Season 1, I'm wondering, is there anything you saw in that first season that maybe just like inspired you and you find yourself holding especially tight to while tackling your own story in that world?
I think it's just the it's just something so unpredictable about the show, and that's so appealing. I think sometimes it's just nice to have no idea where a story is going as an audience and also as someone who's in it. So that's definitely the case.
I'll take that. Big part of the reason why I love Season 1 and have all the faith in the world in all of you for Season 2. I cannot wait for the Ballad of Wallis Island to get out into the world because I think it's going to put a big old smile on a lot of faces. Huge congratulations. You should be so proud.
Thank you so
March
much.
28th, everyone. March 28th.